A young woman's unusually enormous belly was the first sign that she had taken the ultimate unselfish choice to become a surrogate mother. Everything was shocked by the results of the ultrasound when she went in for her appointment. Diana, who was lying on the gurney in the ultrasound room, experienced excruciating pain with every motion due to her large belly. While waiting for the scan to start, she was overcome with anxiety. She tried to reassure herself by thinking, "It must be a very big baby." But she had a sneaking suspicion that something was wrong. Compared to a typical pregnancy, her tummy had enlarged significantly, and the agony was continuous and severe. As he greeted her, the doctor entered the room, trying to put her at ease. "Do you think we should check on the baby? Chill out. It's probably just a minor problem." While setting up the ultrasound machine, he reassured everyone that they shouldn't be worried because many women go through different physical changes throughout pregnancy. Even though she didn't understand a word, Diana felt the icy gel against her belly and stared at the screen, hoping to see a picture of a healthy baby. As the test progressed, though, the joyous occasion swiftly transformed into a stressful one. A look of astonishment and worry replaced the obstetrician's customary composed visage. Under his breath, he mumbled, "My God. That can't be." As he stared at the television, Diana, visibly alarmed, questioned, "What's happening? Does the infant have a problem?" She was so confused and terrified that her voice quivered. Without uttering a word, the physician depressed a button. He stood up to ask for help and stated, "I need more opinions here." Clearly distressed, the anxiety and suspense increased as nurses and other medical professionals entered the room. They swarmed around the TV, their looks of incredulity making Diana more afraid. "That explains why her belly is so large. I can't believe it. It's not possible," a nurse said, putting her palms over her mouth. Diana, filled with panic, cried out, "Please, someone tell me what's going on," as she struggled to make sense of what was happening. But her remarks were lost in the murmur of the medical staff as they traded shocked looks and conjectured. Every time Diana saw someone show surprise, her pulse beat quicker. At last, the doctor turned to look at Diana gravely. He spoke slowly and added, "Diana. Well, there's something very unusual here. We need to run some tests to confirm it. Because in your case, it's something serious." Tension was palpable in the room. The poor pregnant woman felt the tension, every painful second of it. However, what was taking place? What was it that scared the doctors so badly about what they saw on the ultrasound? We must rewind the clock a little in order to comprehend the circumstances. Diana, a vibrant, compassionate 24 years old, made a choice that would alter not just her own life but also the lives of a whole family. She made the decision to adopt a surrogate mother. Diana had grown up in a modest upbringing and had learned the value of perseverance and giving to others. When the option presented itself, she viewed it as an opportunity to do something invaluable, becoming a mother to 2 people, in addition to helping her financial status. As the couple promised a substantial payment for her altruistic deed, she met a woman in her community who had experienced being a surrogate, and it gave her the notion to become one herself. Diana was moved by this woman's ability to provide joy to an infertile family. "I am capable of doing that. I could change someone's life," she thought, excited about the prospect. She connected with the Smiths, the couple who were interested in her services. Right away, she was extremely struck by their genuine warmth and honesty. Even though they were successful individuals, Diana knew she wanted to support them in achieving their goal of starting a family when they talked to her about their hardships and aspirations. Getting ready to be a surrogate involved a lot of work. Diana saw many doctors and performed numerous tests, each one helping her to bring the couple's dream to pass. Driven by the notion of bringing a child into the world and by the financial support that would help rebuild her life, Diana stayed strong in her choice despite the difficulties and intrusive character of several surgeries. She had lately lost her very elderly grandparents, and since she knew neither her parents nor her siblings, she was now on her own. This money was therefore going to transform her life. As Diana got ready for the insemination, she had a mix of anxiety and exhilaration on that day. She considered the delight she would bring to the Smiths as well as the kid she would help bring into the world. Tears of delight and expectation started to bubble in her eyes. "We are ready to get going. Diana, are you ready?" With a friendly smile, the doctor asked, her voice strong and full of emotion. She said, "Yes. I'm ready. More than ready." The operation went without incident, and Diana felt relief when it ended. She rose from the stretcher and experienced an emotional tsunami. This was real now. The start of a trip she knew would be difficult but also very gratifying. She knew full well that discoveries and changes would abound in the next months. Above all, she was now deeply purposeful. She was immensely happy as she was on the road to realize the Smiths' goal. Her pregnancy looked to be going for the first few months. All right. Knowing she was carrying a priceless life, Diana took great care of herself and had frequent visits. Anxious and emotional, the pair sought to track every stage of the pregnancy and show Diana thankfulness and love at every encounter. But with time she started to see something odd. She had odd twinges. Unlike the typical pregnant pains, she first tried to ignore it, believing it was only typical of the procedure. Trying not to worry, she said, "Maybe it's just my body adjusting." Diana carried on with her daily schedule, working as a telemarketer, a profession that taxed her particularly given her pregnancy. Still, she stayed strong, concentrated on the baby's welfare and the financial security this chance would offer. But the agony got worse as the months went by, and Diana discovered her tummy was expanding shockingly quickly. She seemed to have acquired significantly more weight than would be expected for a normal pregnancy in just 3 or 4 months. She stared at her abnormally huge belly and wondered, what's going on? Anxieties and the sense that something wasn't quite right took root. Fear prevented Diana from informing the couple about the pain and the odd growth in her belly. She was worried that if she said anything, she may lose the money that she needed. And she also wanted to make sure the baby was okay. She was burdened with the responsibility of carrying someone else's kid and frightened of disappointing the parents-to-be. Diana had a hard time finding a comfortable posture to sleep in each night due to the discomfort and anxiety that plagued her. What if I endanger the baby? What if I am unable to fulfill my commitment? She was plagued by uncertainties and anxieties brought on by these thoughts. Months went by in the same manner. The frequency with which she saw the Smiths decreased. After all, she just needed it for tests. Otherwise, her life was the same. It appeared normal to them. even if her belly was rather larger for a 5-month pregnancy. So they didn't think it was weird. The girl's belly grew at a rate she had never seen before during her pregnancy, which was both unique and frightening, as Diana's abnormally large frame became more noticeable. She was the target of comments and looks wherever she went, as they whispered to each other. Her coworkers watched her with astonishment and worry. It was getting harder and harder for her to handle her everyday responsibilities as the situation grew intolerable. Overwhelmed by worry, she pondered, "What on earth is inside my belly?" With each passing day, the idea that it was only a baby seemed unbelievable. Stories of horrific insemination, in which traffickers implanted microchips and subsequently abducted the mother, began to circulate to Diana. As her anxiety grew, she realized she had to face the truth, no matter how horrible it was. Unbeknownst to the Smiths, the expectant woman secretly scheduled an ultrasound in her quest for answers. No matter what she found, she was determined to understand the nature of the problem at hand. On the day of her visit, the young woman arrived at the clinic clearly anxious, sensing her own bodily sensations with a blend of apprehension and intrigue. Angry ideas raced through her head. What if it's serious? Is the baby going to be born with a defect? On the other hand, what if they inserted something else into my body? She was petrified. That poor girl. Things took a turn for the worse when she observed the doctor's face change from focused attention to complete shock in the ultrasound room. Diana stared at the television intently, attempting to decipher the hazy images. "That can't be," the doctor whispered with a tone betraying his shock. He sounded both shocked and disbelieving. As her anger level rose, Diana pleaded, "Please tell me what's wrong," and insisted on knowing what was happening. Even after the full medical staff arrived to review the pictures, nobody reacted. The obstetrician eventually turned to face her after what seemed like an age, saying, "Diana, there's something very unusual here." He was careful with his words. "We need to do some tests to confirm it because, in your case, which involves surrogacy, it's something serious." The poor girl, almost crying, questioned, "Is there something wrong with the baby?" No, there's nothing wrong with him." The physician comforted her. "But Diana, you're not pregnant with just one baby." He held back. "You're pregnant with 4 babies." The words resounded like thunder throughout the space. The young woman had the impression that there was no longer any ground beneath her feet. 4 infants? How could that be true? No. This is not possible. The remarkable discovery was confirmed by the specialists as they carried out more examinations. Diana was in utter shock and found it difficult to take in the news. She had never considered the possibility that she was carrying 4 life inside of her. Her thoughts spinning with the revelation. "I'm going to have 4 babies," she said. Her head was filled with images of the couple who had engaged her services. They had a single child in mind. Now, what would they do? The girl was struck down by a tidal surge of contradictory feelings, each anxiety more overwhelming than the last. The physician clarified that many eggs were fertilized to boost the likelihood of pregnancy during the artificial insemination process. Usually, only one of these eggs hatches. But in her instance, 4 of them had flourished, which was exceptional. It wasn't uncommon. Nearly miraculous occurrence. But it put Diana in a very difficult position. The poor girl returned home in a stupor, her mind whirling with ideas of the Smiths. What if the other 3 infants are not what they want? How am I going to provide for my 3 kids? She was overcome with worry. The thought of having 3 children by herself was scary. And she could not even support herself. She thought in a panic. They're going to hate me. They just wanted 1 baby. And now there are 4. However, she was aware that she had to reveal the truth to them. She was afraid of their response. But she had to tell them. Diana called the pair and set up a meeting, her stomach nodding. The poor girl was desperate and had tears in her eyes. Words were hard to get by. Her voice was shaking as she said, "I have something important to say. I'm not expecting a single child. I am 4 months pregnant." The couple stared at her, first not comprehending, then with a mixture of amazement and incredulity. "For the mother-to-be asked." Her voice startled, tears beginning to pour. The girl nodded and tightened herself for the worst. But the Smiths responded far differently than she had anticipated. They stared at one another after the first shock. And a gentle smile started to blossom on their faces. The father-to-be said, "That's incredible," delighted as he turned to face his wife. 4 children. Love. 4 babies are to be born. Still shocked. The girl watched as the 2 of them started talking about their future with 4 children. Buying more clothes. More cribs. They were happy. Delighted with the news. They were not upset. "You've given us a gift more than we could have dreamed." The woman hugged the girl. "My God. I find it unbelievable that I will be the mother of 4 children." Knowing that the Smiths had gladly welcomed the possibility of 4 children meant more to Diana than just relief. It was a gift. It was a gift not expected. The couple could afford to raise the kids. Diana's concerns about the baby's future vanished like mist in the light. "You'll earn 4 times as much," the man said, his cheeks ablaze with a huge grin. Diana was astounded. This meant she would get $800,000. A number that would fundamentally alter her life. The path her life had followed was almost unbelievable. At last the big day arrived. The couple was at her side, holding hands and providing words of support as Diana went into labor. 4 small lives, each sobbing fiercely as they entered the world, were born out of hours of labor in the hospital. For everyone in the room, seeing those small, healthy and alive entities was a time of pure wonder and feeling. Weary but incredibly content. Diana gazed at the children she had helped bring into the world and experienced an incomprehensible delight and pleasure. Now parents to 4 children. The couple found it impossible to look away from their offspring. Thanking Diana often, they promised her she would always have a particular place in their life and in the life of their children. Diana's life started a different path once the quadruplets were born. The Smiths made a particular request, that Diana be the godmother for the boys. Knowing the unique relationship and close bond she had created with the children during her pregnancy. For Diana, it was a privilege and a delight. She embraced without thought, happy to be part of the life of these remarkable youngsters. Diana developed over time from a godmother into a close family friend and a loving aunt to the children. She went to numerous more significant events, including birthdays and parties. She loved every time she spent with the 4 small boys, who adored her. Diana was able to reconstruct her life with the money she got as well. She started a clothes store and made educational investments, therefore realizing a long-held ambition. Years later, Diana wed and had children of her own, who grew up close friends with her godchildren, spending weekends together. The families planned picnics and outings to build a loving network of support, growing up knowing the particular story of how they came into the world. The quadruplets, each with their own distinct personalities and talents, gushed forth. In addition to their godmother, Aunt Diana represented compassion and selflessness to them. She had bestowed upon them the gift of life, and in turn they delighted her and created a lifetime relationship. They had extended her a family and given her direction. The narrative of this surrogate shows that kind deeds are evidence of the strength of love, friendship, and family, not limited only by blood but also by the heart. It reminds us that occasionally the most unanticipated routes can lead to the biggest pleasures of life. After watching the first story above, do you have any thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Now, let's watch another similar story.
Measuring around 2 inches from the top of the head to the rump, or about the size of a prune, most babies are still in the early phases of development at 18 weeks of age. They are not yet ready to be born, and giving birth too soon could be quite harmful. What the mother of this infant witnessed next surprised her as she cradled his little, frail body in her hands. Matt and Charity found out they were expecting a second child in March 2015. They couldn't have been happier and couldn't wait to tell their elder kids, Ryan, 8, and Kelly, 5, the news. The children were asked to estimate the meaning of a bag that contained a framed ultrasound photo, swaddling blankets, and baby socks. Ryan instantly identified baby stuff and shouted, "You are pregnant!" Grinning and staring at his mother's growing tummy, the couple said, "Yes," loudly and enthusiastically in response. Everyone in the family was quite excited about meeting the new baby, and their excitement was palpable. Charity and Matt both saw a boy in their vivid dreams about the child on multiple times. They felt strongly that they were expecting a son even before they revealed his gender. Their excitement increased even though the dreams did not tell what unique quality their unborn child would have. But instead of waiting the entire 9 months, the baby showed up sooner than anticipated. About 18 weeks into Charity's pregnancy, she was awakened abruptly one night by excruciating contractions that got worse over time. She sensed that something was very wrong because it was unusual. When the baby was only in its 4th month, could she be about to go into labor? It was a terrible thought. With worry in her eyes, she nudged Matt awake after noticing that he was sound sleeping and said, "The baby could be coming." Matt stood up fast and reassured her that everything would be all right, but he was worried. "Mom needs your help. We have to go to the hospital now," he hurriedly said to wake the kids. The youngsters grasped this, despite their continued sleepiness, and they all held hands as they entered the vehicle. Matt drove quickly, looking over his shoulder to tell Charity not to give up. Charity's mind raced with the events building up to this moment, despite the extreme nausea and painful contractions. Charity had been bleeding non-stop for a month following her pregnancy, and the flow had only become worse with time. That was when she had worried she was miscarrying. Charity was not miscarrying. It was discovered when she arrived at the hospital. Rather, placenta previa, a disorder in which the placenta attaches in the uterus incorrectly and covers the cervix, was the diagnosis made by the medical professionals. While this illness can sometimes heal on its own, in more severe cases, especially if the infant is at least 24 weeks gestation, an emergency C-section may be required. The infant would have a fair probability of surviving if such were the case. Regretfully, Charity's bleeding persisted, and the physicians were baffled by it. The baby's ears, nose, and mouth were all completely developed, according to a scan. A doctor at one of their many hospital trips offered a concerning recommendation. He suggested that the couple think about ending the pregnancy because of the potential that Charity's life might be at risk from the regular bleeding. but Matt and Charity wouldn't even entertain the idea of firing. Having examined his physical attributes, they felt their kid was healthy, and they were resolved to retain him. Their child was a potential human with a beating heart. As far as they were concerned, they had no intention of taking that away. When they got to the hospital, Charity was startled back to reality by Matt's abrupt stop. She was in excruciating pain and could barely walk, so Matt helped her into a wheelchair and wheeled her into a room where nurses and physicians took care of her right away. The baby had descended and was ready to be birthed, according to an ultrasound. As someone pushed Charity to push, her fears and sadness got the best of her. She was terrified about the appearance of the delivery and whether or not the 4-month-old baby would survive the ordeal. She preferred not to make a fuss since she thought he would be safer if she kept him inside. Even though she wanted to hold the baby inside for as long as she could, the baby eventually came out. In a few minutes, she expelled a delicate infant still within his amniotic sac. Since the physicians hadn't felt a heartbeat during the scan, they assumed the kid had died at birth because he didn't cry or move. The couple, who were inconsolable, consented to see the baby's lifeless body when one nurse unzipped the amniotic sac and asked if they wanted to. With a loving embrace, the parents cradled their small son. Even though he was born too soon, they thought his face was the most stunning thing they had ever seen. His fragile skin, which was virtually translucent and began to cling to the blanket due to the tiny red veins flowing through it, was in a tragic state. The nurses had to lay baby on plastic to prevent any harm to his skin. Tragically, as the parents stared at their son, they witnessed something miraculous. His chest moved up and down, and his weak heart was beating for a split second. The nurses were informed and the infant had little hope of survival. It was probably just electrical impulses. They were right. Unfortunately, despite Matt and Charity's knowledge that their kid would soon die, witnessing his heartbeat was a lovely, transient blessing. They held the firm belief that this rare chance to see their child alive and bid farewell was a gift from God. They felt he should see his older siblings before he went away, so they gave him the name Jackson. Neither Ryan or Kelly could keep back their emotions as they entered the room. They wanted their brother's final moments to be filled with joy and laughter, free from sorrow. Jackson was held, caressed, and kissed tenderly by his family for the following half an hour. We were able to be together as a family with a little boy. Just that one time, Charity reminisced, reflecting on the tranquil experience. We will always treasure that unforgettable experience. Time passed, and life slipped away for Jackson. His mother had sewed a white coffin cover for his burial a few days later. As Christians, the family is certain that they will see Jackson again. Seeing the beginnings of life in her kid is something that Charity will never forget. The author expresses her hope that Jackson's narrative will shed light on the fact that a preborn child is fully formed and living as early as 18 weeks of gestation. She hopes that everyone will see that even the tiniest infants, like Jackson, are unique human beings deserving of our utmost compassion and admiration. The heartbreaking tale of baby Jackson is a poignant reminder of the value of every human life. What I would say to Jackson is, even though you were only here for a short while, Jackson, the people who loved you will never forget you. Many people have been moved by your story, and it has highlighted the importance of every life, no matter how little. The wonderful times you spent with your loved ones are treasured memories that will always be etched in our hearts. They, along with countless others, learned the meaning of life and the deep bond we all have because of your presence, love, optimism, and the power of the human will are all embodied in you. My darling, may you rest in peace, and may the light that you have left behind always shine brightly. After watching the stories above, do you have any thoughts? Dream. This suspicion led them to seek medical advice, which significantly changed their outlook and approach. Kevin and Nicole had been trying to start a family for years without any success, and it seemed like their dream might never come to fruition. But then, something completely unexpected happened that would change their lives in the most beautiful way. Leanna and Sean, a couple from East Mauritius, New York, were already parents to 5 children. At the ages of 37 and 40, they had begun their family at a young age and had always imagined having a big family. When Leanna became pregnant again, this pregnancy was unlike any other. She wasn't adding a 6th child to their family. Instead, she was carrying a child for her friends. Nicole and Kevin. Upon discovering that Nicole and Kevin were facing challenges with infertility, Leanna selflessly offered to be their surrogate. This act of kindness was intended to help the Berrettinis fulfill their long-held dream of becoming parents. Choosing a surrogate from their close circle of friends rather than going through a third-party agency meant that there was no emotional or physical distance between them during the pregnancy. This close friendship allowed them to share every step of the journey together. This unique arrangement enabled both couples to attend all the medical appointments together, keeping them closely informed about the pregnancy's progress. Dr. Richard Klein, the obstetrician overseeing the pregnancy, noted how enjoyable the checkups were, as they were attended not just by 2 but by 4 enthusiastic people, all equally excited and hopeful for the arrival of a healthy baby. In July 2016, a pivotal moment arrived when both couples attended a critical appointment to find out if the embryo implantation had been successful. This appointment was fraught with anxiety for the Berrettinis, who were eagerly anticipating the arrival of their first child. Although the Fives had experienced this moment 5 times before with their own children, they too were profoundly invested in seeing a positive outcome for their friends. The Berrettinis, who had tied the knot back in 2010, had settled in Smithtown, New York, where they hoped to raise their family. Since their marriage, the couple had nurtured the hope of bringing their own children into their loving home, and thanks to the generosity and compassion of their friends, that dream was on the verge of becoming a reality. For years, the couple had been tirelessly trying to have a child, but their efforts were in vain. It wasn't until they sought the expertise of medical specialists that they understood the underlying cause. Nicole's health issues were significantly impeding her ability to conceive. Despite clinging to hope, their spirits were crushed when they received a grim prognosis, shattering their dreams of starting a family. Nicole's health complications began manifesting during her adolescence. At 16, she observed small bumps spreading across her skin, which soon escalated as her entire body was affected. Her eyes turned a noticeable shade of yellow, and she was plagued by fatigue and fever. Realizing the severity of her symptoms, Nicole sought medical attention. The doctors performed comprehensive blood tests and found that her platelet count was alarmingly low at only 8,000 per microliter, well below the normal adult range of 140,000 to 150,000 platelets. This discovery raised serious health concerns. She was subsequently diagnosed with thrombotic thrombocytopenia purpura, TTP, an autoimmune disease notorious for causing dangerous blood clots throughout the body. As a teenager, the gravity of her life-threatening condition was made clear to her, along with the urgent need for immediate treatment. Nicole spent several days in a children's hospital receiving plasma exchange treatments to prevent her condition from worsening. Thankfully, the doctors were able to stabilize her condition with the appropriate medication, which enabled her to enjoy a relatively stable health for many years. However, when Nicole and her husband attempted to conceive, they were faced with devastating news. The medical team informed them that the TTP medication Nicole was on could potentially harm the baby during pregnancy and also pose serious risks to Nicole's health if she were to discontinue the medication. This revelation was a severe blow to both Nicole and her husband, marking a poignant moment of despair in their lives. Her husband recalled the day vividly. "I came home from work, and there was Nicole, a look of utter distress etched on her face. It's a moment I'll never forget. When I asked what was wrong, she broke the news to me that the doctors said we couldn't have children, although technically possible. The risks of conceiving were deemed too great," Nicole told reporters. "I could conceive, but I wouldn't be able to sustain a healthy pregnancy. The risks could lead to the death of either the baby or myself." This prognosis left Nicole completely devastated. She was particularly heartbroken over the fact that she couldn't carry her own child. Overwhelmed by her physical limitations and filled with frustration, she suggested to her husband that they might consider other options to build their family. Reflecting a painful yet necessary acceptance of their situation, however, Nicole's husband had strong reservations about her pregnancy due to potential complications. He was deeply concerned about the risks involved and firmly opposed the idea, prioritizing her safety above all else. After much deliberation, Nicole and her husband decided to stop trying to conceive naturally. They sought the advice of a fertility specialist who provided some reassuring news. Nicole's medical condition was not hereditary, and she had the potential to produce a healthy baby. Buoyed by this information, Nicole chose to freeze her eggs and began to seriously consider surrogacy as a feasible path to parenthood. As Nicole and her husband warmed to the idea of surrogacy, believing they had found a solution, they encountered another hurdle. They were open to other family-building options like adoption, but were quickly daunted by the high costs associated. Upon careful financial assessment, they realized that adopting a child was financially out of reach for them. This led them to focus solely on surrogacy. Despite knowing how many children needed homes, the prohibitive costs of adoption, exacerbated by hefty legal fees, made it an unviable option for them. Committed to pursuing surrogacy, Nicole and her husband researched the associated costs, only to discover that expenses could top $75,000. Facing this financial challenge, they began to explore potential surrogates but found the process daunting due to their circumstances and limitations. Nicole often thought about the stories she'd heard of family members acting as surrogates, sisters or mothers who carried children for those who couldn't. Sadly, she noted, "I don't have a sister, and my mother is too old to be a carrier." Another significant challenge was their location in New York. While the cost of surrogacy was already a concern, they were primarily hindered by state laws that made it illegal to pay someone to act as a surrogate within the state. Considering an out-of-state surrogate added a layer of complexity and additional costs that far exceeded their initial expectations. During a particularly challenging time, a family friend, Leanna, reached out to Nicole and her husband. In a heartfelt conversation, Leanna offered, "I have 5 children, and I know we're capable of having more. I want to help you." This unexpected proposal brought a glimmer of hope to Nicole and her husband during their arduous journey towards expanding their family. Kevin and Nicole were actively seeking a surrogate to help them start their family due to Nicole's health constraints that prevented her from carrying a child. They opted for gestational surrogacy, a process that involves creating an embryo using in vitro fertilization, IVF, and then transferring it into a surrogate. This method would allow the child to be biologically related to both Nicole and Kevin, as the embryo would be created from Nicole's egg and Kevin's sperm. When the couple shared their pursuit of a surrogate with their circle of friends and family, they were overwhelmed by the incredible amount of support and numerous offers to assist. However, as initial excitement faded, it became clear that none of their friends qualified due to strict health and fitness criteria necessary for the surrogacy process. Amid these challenges, Leanna, who had recently had her second child, learned of the Berrettini's difficulties through a mutual friend. Although she was considering expanding her own family, the idea of helping someone else achieve their dream of parenthood piqued her interest. She decided she would not pursue becoming a surrogate until her own family plans were complete, but she remained open to the possibility in the future. The screening process for gestational carriers includes thorough medical exams to verify the health of the potential surrogate and psychological assessments to ensure they are mentally prepared for the emotional aspects of carrying a child that isn't biologically theirs. These stringent requirements, while necessary, contribute to the high costs of surrogacy and often result in many candidates being disqualified. Feeling disheartened, Nicole and Kevin continued to seek comfort by spending time with close friends. One December evening in 2015, while dining with Leanna and her husband Sean, who had been their steadfast friends for over 2 decades and were parents to 5 children, the 5 sympathized deeply with the Berrettini's fertility struggles and expressed their wish to help. As Nicole reached a low point, Leanna listened intently to her friend's woes and proposed a solution that could be a potential game-changer. Kevin vividly remembers this moment when Leanna suggested becoming their surrogate, which left him and Nicole in utter amazement. They were baffled as to why someone with a large family already would consider having another baby. Kevin then realized that Leanna did not intend to expand her own family further but was offering to support them by carrying their child. At this revelation, both Nicole and Kevin were rendered speechless. Overwhelmed with emotion, Kevin suggested that they might need to abandon the idea, as the sheer thought brought them to tears. Yet, through years of friendship, Leanna had shown a deep understanding and empathy towards their situation, illustrating the profound bonds and unexpected turns that can arise in the journey toward parenthood. Over the years, they came to see that Leanna truly meant every word she said. It was at that moment they began to believe that their cherished aspiration of building a family could indeed become a reality. Leanna, reflecting on her selfless decision to help her friends, felt immense gratitude for her 5 beautiful children and couldn't envision her life without them. The sight of her friends, so deserving yet unable to have children, moved her profoundly. With the deep joy her own children brought her, Leanna longed to extend this same bliss to her friends. She had been quietly pondering the idea of surrogacy, and following the birth of her 5th child in 2015, she felt prepared to support another couple in their journey to parenthood. Despite the challenges of raising 5 children, Leanna was dedicated to helping Nicole and Kevin. She discussed the matter with her husband, Sean, making sure he was ready to assume more household responsibilities before she embarked on another pregnancy. Nicole and Kevin, who had longed for such an opportunity, quickly embraced her kind offer. They vowed to stand by Leanna every step of the way. After completing all necessary medical evaluations and numerous visits to the doctor, the time arrived to implant the embryos and hold hopes high for a successful conception. Every party involved held their breath and prayed for a favorable result. The week-long wait to confirm whether the embryo had implanted felt interminable to Nicole and Kevin. Having faced numerous hurdles, they remained hopeful yet cautious, aware that this could be their only shot at having a biological child. A week later, they were informed that Leanna was not pregnant, a setback for everyone involved. Nonetheless, the medical team was optimistic and ready to undertake another embryo transfer, aware of the hurdles but hopeful about the prospects. This restored optimism buoyed everyone's spirits, and the couple continued to hope that the subsequent attempt would bear fruit. After Leanna underwent all the necessary preparations again, they anxiously awaited the results to see what the future held. This time, when the test results came back, they revealed something extraordinary. The crucial moment came when the 2 couples visited the doctor's office to learn the outcome. The doctor joyfully announced that the embryo transfer was successful, and Leanna was indeed pregnant. The Berrettinis were overwhelmed with joy, but as they were processing the wonderful news, they received an even more astonishing update. Not only had 1 embryo taken hold, but 2 had successfully implanted. Nicole and Kevin were soon to welcome twins into their lives, eager to share their happiness. The couples planned to announce the joyful news to their families over the Labor Day weekend. They organized a joint celebration, setting the stage for a joyful announcement surrounded by their loved ones, marking a momentous occasion in their lives. The occasion was marked by a gathering of over 60 guests, a testament to the momentous nature of the celebration. In the presence of their 5 children, alongside a close circle of friends and family, the couple prepared to share a significant announcement. Requesting a brief moment of silence, Kevin and Nicole stood before their attendees and joyfully revealed that Leanna was pregnant with their twins. This memorable announcement set the stage for an even more special day on February 10, 2017, when Kevin and Nicole witnessed the arrival of their beautiful twins, Dominic and Luciano. The birth of these twins was a pivotal moment for the Berrettinis, enveloping the family in a profound sense of love and pride. Kevin expressed his feelings about the experience, stating, "It's probably the most amazing thing because you think it's the end of the road, but here we are with 2 beautiful children." For Nicole and Kevin, first-time parents, the experience was nothing short of magical. Nicole spoke warmly of Leanna, the surrogate, reflecting on their deep bond. "I don't have a sister, but I'd consider her like that. We don't hold back, we're open, honest, and I'm constantly turning to her for guidance." Throughout this transformative journey, Nicole successfully managed to continue her treatment with HTP medication, all while embracing her new role as a mother to her newborn twins. This careful balancing act highlighted her dedication not only to her health but to providing a loving environment for her newly expanded family. After listening to this tale, what are your impressions? We'd love to hear from you in the comments section below. Your insights are valuable to us. Now, we have another engaging story. Let's proceed to the next one. Sandra Pennins, a wealthy woman residing in a tranquil Connecticut suburb, was accustomed to leisurely mornings spent at her vanity, reveling in the independence of her grown children and the financial comfort her family enjoyed. However, Her peaceful routine was disrupted when she noticed a young boy scavenging through her garbage bins, searching for leftover food. This unexpected sight intrigued Sandra, who watched from her window as the boy carefully sifted through the trash, collecting discarded takeout containers. Initially, Sandra considered reporting the boy to the homeowners association or the police, viewing his actions as a disturbance. However, she soon realized that he was driven by necessity, not malice. The boy returned daily, which suggested that his need was ongoing and perhaps more desperate than she had first thought. Reflecting on the surplus of food in her own home, much of which ended up as waste, Sandra felt a pang of guilt. She recognized that what was excess to her could be vital sustenance for others. The thought that the boy might also be collecting food for stray dogs further softened her heart. Rather than discussing the situation with neighbors, Sandra decided to handle it discreetly, acknowledging the complex interplay of privilege and need that the boy's predicament highlighted. Driven by a growing curiosity and empathy, Sandra began leaving out full containers of takeout food, carefully observing what the boy would do. She noticed his excitement each time he discovered the meals, though he never ate immediately. Compelled to understand his circumstances better, Sandra laced up her running shoes early one morning. Determined to follow him discreetly and uncover where he was taking the food, the boy was quick, efficiently gathering the food containers and other items he could carry, and soon began his journey. Sandra opted to follow on foot, considering her car too conspicuous for the task. After about a 30-minute trek, which to Sandra felt much longer due to her anticipation and concern, she followed him to a rundown part of the neighborhood she rarely visited. What she discovered there would profoundly impact her understanding of her community and the actions she would take next to address the unseen needs around her. Sandra found herself in an unfamiliar, upscale neighborhood. She was somewhat anxious about finding her way back but remained focused on her task. She trailed a young boy, careful to keep out of sight, as he navigated the streets. The area, marked by its affluence, stood in stark contrast to the destination where the boy eventually stopped. A weathered and seemingly neglected house. Sandra watched as he placed a package of food on the porch without entering the house, then discreetly made his way around to the back. Perplexed as to why the boy didn't simply take the food inside, Sandra stayed hidden, observing from a distance. Moments later, a fragile-looking woman with a pale complexion emerged from the house. Her face lit up with joy upon seeing the food at her doorstep. She called out excitedly, "Jim, they did it again. Someone brought us food." A boy, presumably Jim, came out and embraced her joyfully, exclaiming, "Yay, let's take it inside to eat, Mom." Before they both retreated back into the home, Sandra was taken aback by the scene. It became clear that Jim had been collecting food and pretending it was anonymously donated. She wondered why such a deception was necessary, especially considering her own family's significant contributions to charities and taxes intended to support welfare programs. Driven by a mix of curiosity and concern, Sandra approached the house and knocked. The woman answered the door, napkin in hand, seemingly in the middle of a meal. "Oh dear, have I interrupted your meal?" Sandra inquired, stepping forward apologetically. Introducing herself as Sandra Pennins, she explained how she had followed Jim and witnessed his actions. As Jim joined the conversation, his cheeks flushed with embarrassment, Sandra laid out what she had observed. The boy's mother, taken aback, turned to her son for confirmation. "Jim, are you the one bringing this food, and did you take it from her trash?" she asked, her voice trembling. Addressing Sandra once more, the woman assured, "Mrs. Patankin, this will never happen again. I'm so sorry." Sandra raised her hand to stop her, shaking her head. "No, young lady, that's not my concern. I just wanted you to be aware of your son's actions, and to tell you that I believe he's a commendable young boy. I've been deliberately leaving full containers of food for the past few days. I became a bit curious today and spied on you just now. I hope you understand my intentions were out of concern and curiosity," Sandra concluded, hoping to reassure the family of her good intentions. "Please forgive me for that. Oh well, I still don't condone rummaging through trash, but ultimately, that's my error." The young woman, who introduced herself as Maria, began explaining, "We don't have many options right now. It's my fault that my son is out there searching through people's trash for food." Sandra felt a deep pang of sympathy, her heart going out to Maria, who felt embarrassed about her difficult circumstances. Shaking her head compassionately, Sandra responded, "No, Maria, don't feel ashamed. I can't claim to fully understand your struggle, but I was wondering if I might help so that your family never has to eat from the trash again." Maria invited the older woman inside and shared more about her life. Her husband, who had been the main breadwinner, had passed away recently. They had 4 young children, all under the age of 7, unable to work as she needed to care for her children, and with government assistance delayed, their situation had grown dire. Sandra asked about food banks, but Maria explained they were too far away, making the trip virtually impossible for her. Things had become desperate until some bags of food started mysteriously appearing on their doorstep over the past month. Maria shared how Jim often found packages of untouched food in people's bins, and lately, the meals had been delightful, thanks to Sandra's discreet help. "That's not enough to sustain your family, dear," Sandra remarked after they had talked for about an hour. "Listen, I have an idea. My housekeeper has been talking about retiring soon, and we have plenty of space in our house, including a pool house that we could convert into living quarters for a maid. You'd have a job, and your kids would be safe in my house, and you'd never have to worry about where your next meal will come from." "That's too much, too good to be true," Maria said, shaking her head and looking down at her feet. Until Sandra placed her hand on her shoulder to reassure her. "Please, I won't be able to sleep knowing that I have so much while an entire family with young children is suffering from hunger. This isn't charity, as you would be earning it," the older woman urged, her eyes imploring Maria to take the modest offer. Eventually, Maria agreed, touched by Sandra's genuine concern and generosity. As Sandra prepared to leave, knowing her journey home would be lengthy, Maria proposed, "We could call a taxi for you." Sandra declined, saying, "No, I'll walk. It's a beautiful evening for it." Sandra had come to a moment in her life where introspection was necessary. She resolved to start putting her affairs in order, assuring everyone that they could move into her home by the end of the week. After bidding farewell to them, Sandra walked home, her mind deep in thought. She began to realize how much she had taken her own considerable blessings for granted and made a mental commitment to value and utilize them better going forward. Maria and her children quickly settled into their new environment, and Maria emerged as the most hard-working individual Sandra had ever encountered. What delighted Sandra the most, however, was not just Maria's diligence but the vibrant energy and laughter the children brought into her previously quiet home. Sandra had always cherished her tranquil mornings, but the sounds of the children's joyful play in her backyard now brought a new level of joy that she had never experienced before. Sandra and Jim, Maria's eldest child, developed a particularly strong relationship. Sandra was dedicated to ensuring that he and his siblings would have access to the best educational opportunities available. This commitment added a new purpose to her life, enriching it far beyond her previous solitary existence. If you found this video enriching and uplifting, please give it a thumbs up and consider sharing it with others who might appreciate its content. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to connecting with you in the next video.